Hi, boys and girls. We're ready for another story tonight. Our story is called Ethel's Lonely Journey. Now, Ethel was 11. Her brother was 13. And the two of them were walking along behind their covered wagon. They had been talking as they walked along. Dad was walking and Mom was walking, but the baby sister was inside the back of the wagon in a box that they put a pillow in, and there she'd sat. She wasn't big enough to walk yet. Well, as they'd been talking, Ethel, she turned to her brother and she said, "Rolf, did you hear Dad say that we were going to a godless country? Why would Dad want to move us to a place where God wasn't?" Rolf said, "I don't know. I heard him say it." Well, Ethel was worried about that. Was it true that they could go so far that God wouldn't be there? Well, she was thinking about that. It was getting later in the day. You know, they'd been traveling along and they'd been going through the mesquite trees. They had long pods full of seeds in them. And when the wind blew, they shook and they made a rattling sound. But now, when Ethel looked around, there were some big green pine trees. And there was big cottonwoods, and there was tall brown prairie grass as far as they could see. Well, it really was getting close to stopping for the night. But when Ethel looked up, she saw that Mom and Dad were going faster and faster, leading those oxen and that wagon on. Well, Rolf, he looked at Ethel, he said, "They should be stopping for the night. The oxen are tired, the horses are tired, and we're tired." Well, then, all of a sudden, Dad did go out in front of the horses and the oxen, and he stopped them. And he thought this was as good a place as any to make camp for the night. And then he looked at all that dry grass and he said, "We can't build a campfire tonight. No hot food tonight." Ralph said, "I guess we'll have bread and cheese again tonight." But Mother said, "It's fine. We can survive on cold food. It's not far to our new home. And then we can have all the cooked food we want." Mother was always cheerful. Well, they started to set up for the night. And Mother, she got out the big food box. And she started taking out homemade bread and cheese. And she made them plates of bread and cheese. And when they had eaten that piece of bread with cheese on it, Mom gave them each another piece. And in a pot she had cooked, when they were back where the grass wasn't dry, she had taken water and she put it in the pot, and she'd added dry apples and she'd added honey and she'd boiled it down, and it smelled just like apple pie. And she said, "Give me your plates." And she put all those dried apples that were all cooked up and soft and smelled so good on top of that piece of bread. And they ate it just like you would apple pie. Well, after dinner was over, Dad, he got out the mattresses to put underneath the wagon. Well, Mom and baby sister and Ethel, they all slept inside the wagon. But Dad and Roloff, they slept under the wagon to keep an eye on things. Well, before anything happened, before they went to bed, Dad was outside wandering around, and he said, "I have the strangest feeling. This is the oddest night. I feel like maybe there's humans close to us." But he kept looking around and he didn't see anything. And then the horses started neighing, and they were being answered by the sound of another horse. Father said, "There has to be somebody around here. Now you all stay here. Ralph, you protect your mama and sisters. I'm going to go up to that ridge, and I'm going to look over the edge and see if there's anything down there." Well, Father, he took off in the distance. They could see him going through the shadows. And when he got to the top of the ridge, he looked down there and he heard back at the camp, he heard a horse neigh. And then down the ridge from him, he heard another horse neigh. He looked very carefully down there, and he saw what looked like a tent. And he saw a horse and some poles standing up. Well, he didn't know what all that was, but he thought, there's somebody down there. We can see them tomorrow, maybe. I don't want to go down there in the dark. And then he heard something else. He stood there. It sounded like a human. But he didn't know. He thought, well, maybe I'm just hearing coyotes or something. So he went back to Mother and he said, "Yes, there's a horse down there. There's a tent down there. There's some poles sticking out of the ground. And there's a little chicken coop. Somebody's living down there. And I heard something. And it almost sounded like a human. But I think we should just wait. And tomorrow go see who they were." And Ralph's eyes got big. He said, "Let's get in the wagon and let's go that way as fast as we can. They could be robbers or something." But then Mother said, "Father, did it sound like a person? Maybe somebody's in trouble. You know, God wouldn't be pleased with us who claim to be God's children if we just left somebody in trouble down there. Let's all go up to the ridge and look." So they did. The whole family went together, Mommy carrying the baby and the two kids walking along. And when they got to the top of the hill, they stood there. They heard the horses talking back and forth to each other. And then they heard it again. Father said, "It sounds like somebody's calling for help." But it sounded like it was way down in a tunnel somewhere. Then Father said, "That must be a well. Maybe somebody fell in the well." So Mother and the kids and Father, they ran down the hill, and Father started calling, "Where are you? Where are you?" And that voice down in the tunnel went, "Help! I'm in the well! Help! I'm in the well!" Well, Father, he went over to those poles and he looked down. Sure enough, there was a man in the bottom of the well, and the water was starting to come up. And Father said, "Hang on, we'll be there in just a few minutes. Hold on tight." So Father, he looked around and he found a rope. And he let the rope down, and he and Ralph were able to pull that man up out of that well. When the man got to the top, oh, he said, "I'm so thankful you heard me. I fell in the well this morning. I didn't exactly fall in. I'd lowered myself with a pulley and a rope, and I'd been digging this well. And my rope broke, and the pulley fell inside the well, and I couldn't get out. And I knew there was nobody around, nobody to come if I called. I knew I shouldn't call, but I just had to try. And I prayed to God, and He must have heard me. He sent you. He made you hear me." Well, the man took them into his tent, where he had a small little stove, and Father quickly built a fire so the man could dry out. The man said, "You rescued me just in time. The water was starting to rise." He had obviously hit a water vein, which was a good thing, but not if you're trapped down in it. Oh, the man was so happy. And Father said, "We bought a piece of land, 160 acres, and it's supposed to be about 40 miles that way." The man said, "That's wonderful." And do you know what Ethel was thinking? She was thinking, God heard the man calling. God has to be here. We're not too far away. Wherever we are, God can hear us. Oh, I'm so glad we didn't go away from God. He's still here to help us. And it reminded her of a verse. "Lo, I am with you always." Wherever you are, boys and girls, God is there listening. Thank you. I will see you next week. Bye-bye now.